Welcome to Occupational Queerpy, a podcast run by an occupational therapy student exploring the intersection of occupational therapy and the LGBTQIA+ experience. This podcast offers personal perspectives for informational and educational purposes only. We'll be discussing a wide range of LGBTQIA+ topics, and to authentically reflect the community, we'll be using common and slang terms which some listeners may find explicit. Listener discretion is advised. Intro music fades. Lights on us. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Occupational Queerpy. Today, we will be talking about social justice and advocacy, and we have a special guest here. Hello, special guest.
Hi, how are you?
Good. And can you tell us your name, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ren. I am a first-year occupational therapy student here at AIC. A little bit about myself. It's really hard to talk about myself.
Just try.
I will try.
Is it?
You want the gay stuff, or you want like the...
I want everything.
You want everything?
We want to hear the whole story.
Okay. So life truly started when I moved. No, for real though. Like, honestly, like moving away from home after graduating high school and like going to the U of A in Fayetteville, like getting away from home for the first time.
Where did you grow up?
Bryant.
Okay.
Outside of Little Rock.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Not super far, but still Arkansas. Yeah, so like getting out of there was like the best thing ever. Not in terms of like I hated everyone there and I needed out, but like it was just good for me to like get exposed to different things because I had never seen anything other than pretty much what you see in every southern white town. So it was nice to get out and see people that were different and different perspectives. And so I think that honestly that was just like a huge turning point in my life and really kind of where things started to begin and when I started to learn about who Ren actually was. So about like all the gay stuff, you know, that's whenever I figured that stuff out because I didn't know. I mean, like I had no clue living back home, like what that meant. Like I knew that I was like attracted to women, but I didn't know that like how to go about that or how to even identify what I was feeling. I just thought I really wanted to be these people's best friend. Like had no clue that you know meant something a little bit different. Just because of how I grew up and just there was no representation really at this point in time. So I graduated high school in 2013. I'm old.
Same.
So yeah, I mean like during that time I think things were starting to like ramp up. Like I think Tumblr was like super popular and like people started like seeing a little bit more representation. But as far as it goes with like seeing it prior to branching out and leaving home, it was almost non-existent. So the stuff that we did hear and did see was all fairly negative and most of it was all coming from like churches or more like conservative sources. So didn't really have a good idea of what positive like queer representation was until then. So, but yeah, I mean, the journey of it all. I mean, I'm still learning and growing and figuring out about myself. Like I said, I feel old. I'm about to be 30 this year, but I'm still. Last year I just kind of started like the whole gender identity journey. So I had never allowed myself to really like move into that space just because trans people or gender diverse people were so negatively talked about growing up that like I could not even fathom like in the way I was like it was communicated to me by people who were close to me, like being gay was bad enough, like being gender diverse was like that absolutely could not be a thing. So I like never allowed myself to even dive in that deep in terms of my identity until literally last year. So it's almost been a year. I came out as non-binary, so I'm using they, them pronouns, but really I don't care as long as you're nice. So, I mean, it's still something I'm learning and being comfortable with, and I think it just really comes, it comes with being in certain contexts. I'm more comfortable than others, but I think the journey is still happening, still so much more to learn about myself, and I love that about, like, at least the queer community. Like, we're always learning about ourselves and always learning about how to better represent ourselves and better self-advocate as well. So, yeah, it's a long journey. It's been a tough one.
Yeah.
So it has not been super smooth by any means. So, but I'm hoping that in the future it gets that way despite current events and stuff. So
So is you said you were identified as non-binary,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Can you explain, we did an episode where we explained the acronym for
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQIA+. Non-binary is not a letter.
Correct.
Can you kind of elaborate on what non-binary is and means?
Sure. So I didn't know this until after learning more about like what being non-binary meant. I always just kind of noticed people who weren't either male or female, and it kind of sounded like in the beginning I was like, man, how do you not know? Like, how is that even an option? Like, I was kind of critical of it. Honestly, I was like, just pick one. Like they do with bisexual people. I was like, just pick one. Like, that is such a terrible way to look at it. But I was so uneducated. I had no clue, like, what that looked like. So after learning more about it, it falls under the trans umbrella. So not a lot of people know that either. So whenever people say that I'm non-binary and they're like, well, where is that? Like you said, like, where is that in the acronym? I was like, well, it's under the T. So it falls under that umbrella of just being identifying as something that's different than what you were assigned at birth. So it took me a minute to like kind of realize that was kind of how I was feeling, was like I didn't feel inherently female ever. Like, always been a tomboy, always wanted to be one of the guys, but I knew I wasn't a dude. Like, so I think it really just came from more of like, where did I feel most comfortable if I were to put myself on a spectrum? It was almost always in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm someone who thinks very much like in numbers. Like, I like percentages and stuff. So I always say I'm just somewhere in the middle, like just 50%, either way. So that's kind of how I describe it in terms of my experience. I know it's different for others. Like, being non-binary, you can be trans femme, you can be trans masc. I think I probably lean more on the side of trans masc just because I'm AFAB and I express myself in more of a masculine way. So it's different for everybody, though. I mean, everybody's experience can be whatever they want it to be.
Mm-hmm. So
as long as you're comfortable in how you're identifying with yourself and it feels right to you, you can. I mean, there are people who, they almost look one certain way, and you ask them their pronouns, and they tell you something that's completely different than what you expected. So it's always safe to ask rather than to assume. So,
never hurts.
Yes, exactly, sure. So I think that's especially true for non-binary people, because you might just assume just by looking at someone, but you never know until you ask.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Talking about your queerness, your
Mm-hmm.
non-binary identity. So we had a talk where, LGB is like a sexual orientation, trans, non-binary, that's
Mm-hmm.
a gender identity.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you identify sexual orientation-wise? Is that, because I feel like sometimes people get confused. It's like,
Sure.
well, you're this, so you like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do you fall on that?
Oh my gosh, that's even been a journey as well. It's actually kind of funny. I really don't know. So
And that's okay.
That is okay. Yeah, I'm like, because like I used to be like hardcore lesbian. Like, there was no change in that. But I'll be honest, it's kind of a joke, but honestly, it just goes to show that you never really truly know what you're attracted to. But I mean, I guess you can be, but it can change over time is what I mean. But we were at the Greta Van Fleet concert. Have you seen this man?
The way the outfits are incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
The lead singer, Josh.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I stood there and I turned and looked at Kate and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what my sexuality is at this point.
An awakening.
I was like, I'm having a new awakening here. So, I mean, honestly, for me personally, if you had to put a label on it, I guess I would say I'm pansexual, just because I really don't care as long as like I'm attracted to you, like I'm just gonna like you for who you are, and however you identify gender-wise, like, that doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely tend to be more attracted to feminine people. So, I mean, I have a history of dating not exclusively women, but at least in my adult life, like, dating women.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I think that, at least for me, I was so, like, strict-minded whenever I was mostly in undergrad. Like, I can only date women, only feminine women. Like, it was just, like, such a hard-nosed concept for me but, like, I think getting older, I've realized, like, as long as I'm happy and, like, I'm in a safe, like, healthy relationship, that's what matters to me, and I really don't care how that looks.
And a label's not necessary.
No,
and
not
I apologize if I, like...
No, you're good.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Because
No,
I'm like, what are you? Can you tell us? Give me a specific,
No, I mean,
what do you like?
But the thing is, like, I ask myself that question, too, because, I mean, like recently getting on dating apps has been a journey, because like they ask you like what you're like, what you like, how you identify, and then what you're attracted to, and it's like it's extremely overwhelming sometimes, because I mean they're asking you to like essentially put yourself in these boxes so you can be shown to other people who put themselves in these boxes. Like it's just like an algorithm kind of thing, and that's not how the world works. So it's I'm much more of a genuine like meet in person kind of person. So yeah, dating apps are really not my favorite thing in the world, because they just force you so hard to be like to put words with things. So
yes,
yeah, it's interesting for sure to be out there and figuring all that out. But I mean, really honestly, I think I definitely lean towards more feminine people, but you know, it is what it is.
Has your queerness impacted? So you're an OT student, correct? I don't know how I rearranged the episode. So Kate has been on or is coming on at some point. Ren is another person that came from like working at the school to becoming an OT student.
Yes.
So has your queerness, I know you saw how awesome I was as the first year OT student,
so
and I'm sure that was a large factor in why you came to the program.
Absolutely.
But has like your queerness or identity, did that play a part in wanting to join the occupational therapy profession?
For sure. And I think that, so I looked at different programs. I had a career before this, and I worked in a hospital as a neurophysiologist, and it was very like siloed. I did my work in the corner of the operating room. I did my thing and I went home. And like it was something where I got to make an impact on a patient like for like, you know, the time that they were in surgery, but I never got to actually connect with people and like hear their story and hear like their journey. And I think that's what drew me so much to OT, is because that like queer people have such a journey. Like I mean, you hear their stories, and like I know that's kind of why you're doing this, is because you want to hear people's stories.
For sure.
Is not, there's no other medical profession, I don't think, that really dives into something like that like OT does, and address the way that it addresses like how they interact with daily life. I just think that it was absolutely incredible to like see how OT addresses that, but then also to know from like being queer and also not like figuring out I'm gender diverse as well, like how that impacts everyday life. Like people who are in this community, we have struggles. Like I mean, it affects literally every aspect of your life, whether you like you know it or not. I think it's harder for some than others, especially if you're straight passing or cis passing. Like it, I mean, there are a lot of struggles for people who are very obviously queer based on their appearance. So, I mean, it literally boils down to, I mean, the way that you wake up in the morning and start your day. I mean, but like, if you're in the community and you're struggling with something like that, like where do you turn to? And after I kind of started learning that like OT can help with stuff like that, like it really just kind of opened my mind of like the possibilities are endless. And but yeah, I mean, like I think working here and getting to like kind of, I guess, browse each program, I think that it really, this program in particular, the faculty have been absolutely wonderful in terms of like respecting me and who I am in my journey, and just being super supportive. Like they almost feel like friends in a way. I know that like we still have that professional relationship, but I feel comfortable with all of them, and I think that's also kind of what drew me here. So if all of these OTs were acting in this way, like who's to say that, you know, the world of OT wouldn't be the same? So I was just kind of looking for a career that was welcoming, but also wanted to make an impact on people who were kind of similar to me, or even different than me. Who knows? Just make an impact in some way, but I felt like OT could do that.
So did you know about OT prior to starting working here?
Yes, I did a little bit, not a ton. What I did know was really exclusive to the experience I had with my family. So my dad, back in, I think it's July of 2018, so it's been several years, he had a motorcycle accident in his 50s. So he had lived his entire life being, you know, having being completely independent, and then he has a motorcycle accident, ends up having, you know, a ton of injuries, but the most detrimental was a T12 burst fracture, which left him a paraplegic.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, huge life change. You know, he's at this point getting close to retirement. Like, I mean, him and my mom are planning what they're going to do in retirement. Like, things completely got like flipped upside down within a matter of seconds. And so he went through, I mean, it was a really long period of time in terms of recovery. So he had his accident in July and didn't come home until November. So, I mean, just imagine going out for a motorcycle ride one day and then just, like, not coming back until, like, Thanksgiving.
Golly.
Like, it was absolutely crazy. But he saw OT when he was in the hospital, but then he ended up having to go to, like, a nursing facility because he broke the scapula on his dominant side. So he was unable to do, like, really anything upper extremity for a while until that healed. But then he went to inpatient rehab, and that's where he, for the first time, like, he called me one day, and he's like, "You're never going to believe what I did today." And I was like, "What did you do?" I'm sitting here thinking, like, something so crazy. And he goes, "I made muffins." And I was like, "What? You made muffins?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been working with occupational therapy, and we got to go into a kitchen today, and I got to make muffins, and I did it pretty much by myself because they have all these cool tools that, like, made it to where I could reach the counter, and I could," I mean, he was just going on and on and on about, like, how awesome this was. And I was like, really? I was like, I didn't really know what OT, I mean, I knew of it, but I knew it as, like, the generic, like, PT works with, like, lower body and, like, stuff like that, but then OT works with upper body. So I'm like, that's kind of what my extent of my knowledge was. But he started talking about how awesome this experience was, and I will never forget that, like, how excited a grown man was over making muffins. But truly, like, I mean, like, one of his occupations now is to barbecue and cook. So, I mean, it's even carried over into how, you know, how he operates at home. So, I mean, it really just, I think that was a turning point for him in terms of he still knew he had meaning after such a detrimental event in his life. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep this one in my back pocket. Like, I'm thinking about it. But I was already full, like, I was like pretty much, this was right before my last semester of college. So I was already pretty knee deep into a different career. But, I mean, honestly, whenever I kind of connected the opportunity here, like, I was really excited to bring that personal experience into it as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, topic of the day: social justice and advocacy. Core parts of OT, right? Like, we're huge advocates, always advocating for our clients and individuals. But today, I kind of want to talk about advocating for the queer, the LGBTQIA+ community. Like, how do we go about that? Why is that OT? So I kind of want to just talk about the current political climate. This is filmed. This is early March of 2025. New president was just elected. Put it together, connect those dots.
Yeah.
Queer people are feeling a little unsafe right now. We're feeling effed in the A, as some would say.
That's to put it lightly.
That's lightly put. I just want to go ahead. So in 2024, the American Civil Liberties Union, they kind of track anti-LGBTQIA+ legislation across the United States. And according to them, this is all levels, federal, state, local, but there were 533 anti-queer bills that were introduced in 2020. Yeah, not like they didn't all pass, but like people are trying to get these.
533 separate instances of people trying to. Okay.
Exactly, in 1 year. So
Love that for us.
They're coming for us, and that was when we had someone else in office, someone who's in office now. I'm gonna bleep that. Is in office right now. Just 2025.
Or is it as a puppet and
It's and
Where's JD Vance? Where is he?
He's putting on mascara somewhere.
Yeah,
he's putting on that eyeliner.
Did you see how short his pants were? This is so, like,
no.
off topic, but, like, they were up to his knees. It looked like he was wearing his child's pants.
Gosh.
I mean, I just sat there and I was like, no queer person would ever, like, obviously whoever's dressing him is a straight person.
Obviously a straight stylist.
Yes. Ugh.
A gay would never allow that.
Honestly, I'm so happy that happened because I look for whatever I can to.
I mean, it's the little things.
It is the little
that
things
we have to look forward to
now. Absolutely.
So it's 2025 now, right?
Yes.
I was just looking. We're in Arkansas. I was looking for Arkansas-specific anti-queer legislation. I didn't see any in 2024. I feel like there was something, but I couldn't find anything online.
It might have been 2023. I know that they were really trying to come for, like, a ban on, like,
was that
treating minors. I think that was 23.
Was that when, like, the queer performances, like, queer reading, like drag library
I
time?
think so. That is something I
Don't quote us,
yeah,
people.
please don't quote us.
We're discussing. This is a
Honestly,
discussion.
it's hard to keep up with it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like a lot of it. I mean, a lot of things get introduced, but it's hard to tell like what's getting traction.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's like every year something is happening. So,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of actual timeline, I wouldn't be surprised. But if everything starts to blur together whenever you're constantly being attacked.
It's truly.
So,
I did I looked up 2025 like anti-queer legislation in Arkansas, and there is one. It's still in the works. It's just a House bill right now.
Okay.
But I like read the actual bill, had no idea what it meant. So then I like had it translated kind of to make it make more sense. So I'm gonna read the bill.
Okay.
And then I'm going to translate the bill. So this is House Bill 1307. This is in Arkansas. So it's ... So this is like in the middle of the bill. So direct or allow any service provider in connection to the institutional fund to act in a way that is aligned with any of the following. And then one of the following is providing access to or facilitating an abortion, gender reassignment or sex reassignment medication or procedures. So translation in regard to the queer stuff, this part specifically lists that an institution cannot tell or allow a service provider to provide access to or help with abortions, gender reassignment medications or procedures, or sex reassignment medications procedures when it is beyond the requirements of law.
Okay.
So that's what's happening in Arkansas right now, and it's still going through. It hasn't been passed officially or anything, but that's something that's up.
So is that saying that the institution, so say for example that you have a hospital that, maybe a surgeon is contracted with them and they do gender affirming care. Is that saying that the institution can't tell that provider they can't do it, or they can't? I
think it's saying like the institution can't allow that provider to do it.
Okay.
So it's like, it sounds like a ban to me.
That's what it sounds like to me.
It's sounding banning. They try to talk so professional in these bills, and I'm like, I know for a fact the people that wrote these didn't actually write them.
No.
They have no idea what they're saying. And it makes it very hard to keep up because I literally looked it up and it's still confusing to read.
Yes.
And yeah, so it definitely, that section is definitely like an attack on queer people, obviously, gender reassignment. And then also abortions and stuff. A lot of queer people, I was looking in the research, and a lot of queer people have pregnancies. You know, I think it was bisexual women. Don't quote me on this. I may have to cut this out. But I'm pretty sure I saw something that like bisexual women have like more unexpected pregnancies, which is...
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And it attacks women.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
I mean,
like, the abortions is like an attack on women and trans individuals who can give birth, which is obviously queer-coded. Like, we love women. We love the women. The queer community, we are allies. We support you women.
Absolutely.
We support the birth givers.
Absolutely.
So that was just one specific example of stuff in Arkansas, but there's national shit.
Oh,
They're
day.
constant.
We live rent-free in their head.
They are obsessed with us.
Honestly.
And it's flattering, of course. I love attention, but damaging. Like, they're gonna get some people killed.
Absolutely.
Like, legitimately, people will die. I found something about Oklahoma in my research, and this is just talking about queer youth. So in the public education system, it's a mess in Oklahoma in general, right? But there is legislation. Have you ever heard of PragerU?
I have.
So it's like a conservative organization that does like educational modules that's like traditional values. And so on their website it says quote unquote pro-American values.
Gross.
And it's often at the expense of, you know, minority populations, aka queer people, people of color. So PragerU has been approved for use in schools in Florida and Oklahoma, and it utilizes educational videos that often present biased and harmful perspectives on queer issues. So the widespread climate of discrimination and misinformation necessitates a strong advocacy role for OTs. So kids, you know, start them young, like they're starting to be exposed to... I feel like lack of knowledge is where I was. I graduated in 2014, you 2013 from high school.
Yes.
I feel there wasn't necessarily like anti-queer stuff in the curriculum. There was just non-existent queer stuff.
Correct. It was like we're not going to talk about it at all. Like, so if you don't know about it, you wouldn't be as prone to participating in it. But that's not
how it works.
We know that that's not how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say like at least in our curriculum, like if we had health, we talked about sex ed, it was all heterosexual. It was nothing. There was not one snippet about same sex or anything beyond that. So yeah, I mean, like, so it just leaves you to, I mean, that just sets them up for, unfortunately, unhealthy expectations in terms of intimacy and stuff. I mean, like, that's only the small seed that's planted there. But like, I mean, if this is, to me, I mean, not to point fingers, but this sounds like a Christian nationalist type situation.
Pro-American.
Pro-American. Sure, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, that's beyond, I mean, while this is like, I think I agree, this is absolutely egregious, but this is only the beginning, I think.
Oh, for sure.
This is like just a small tidbit.
Yeah. Because while like kids were just getting a lack of knowledge in school, which is detrimental to queer people, especially like stuff like sexual education, like not knowing safe sex practices, STDs and whatnot that affect our community. But this is anti-queer specifically.
Yes.
We're already hated.
Yes.
But now this is teaching young people anti-LGBTQIA plus stuff.
Yes.
And it's in the school, so
Yes.
it's official. Like, that's correct because they're teaching it in school, right? These are videos we're seeing in school. So it is super scary for queer youth growing up. Like, kids are being exposed to anti-queer stuff from the institutions that are supposed to be protecting everyone.
I mean, that's where they get you. I mean, they start taking, I mean, they know that this next generation is some of the most open-minded, free thought generation that we've had, and they have literally access to everything at their fingertips. And to start scaling that back and to control whatever they can, they're going to start, like you said, in the school, but banning things and censoring what little information there is out there, especially the more positive stuff that talks about safety and staying healthy. Like, they're going to do whatever they can. So I would not be surprised if this is starting to be taken into effect in multiple more states.
Yeah, because there's only 2 right now, but
yeah,
could see it.
But yeah, it's I hate that. It makes me sad because I mean, you would hope that, you know, the further that we progress, the more knowledge that we have, the more like science or scientific evidence that we have, evidence-based practice that we have, like teaching these kids like safer sex and safer ways to go about relationships. I mean, OT does that, but I mean, we know that at this level, but taking that away from them, we know it's going to be detrimental for this next generation if something doesn't change, unfortunately.
These laws, even passed or not, they're going to have significant effects on queer people's mental health, their well-being, just the sense of not knowing, that anticipatory stress, that minority stress. It's like, am I going to be able to go to the doctor and get the care I need? Am I going to be able to marry the person I love? Am I going to be able to like publicly exist as a queer person? You know, it's scary.
Do you remember when gay marriage was passed? Like, it wasn't 2015 or it was like around that, like right after we graduated high school. It was like in the summer of like 2014, 2015 is whenever it got approved for same-sex marriage. And I just remember like having a huge relief but like the fact that it's already starting to be challenged in this administration. I think some person up in Michigan, he's tried to challenge that. I mean, it's literally every day stuff like this is coming up, and it's like you said, it's like we're constantly being thought about. But for what? I mean, I really don't understand where the hatred comes from.
And I think the challenging of, you know, same-sex marriages, it just goes to show you're never safe. So you said we breathed the sigh of relief when that happened, and now that it's even being challenged, it's like, will we ever be safe?
I don't think so. Not for the foreseeable future.
Not in our time.
Not in our time, unfortunately. The hope I do have is that our queer ancestors who came before us, especially our Black trans women that started Stonewall,
exactly,
and like they lived through. Well, not all of them, unfortunately, but I mean, they did all of this.
Set the stage.
We are
for
where
sure.
we are because of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people forget that it was the smallest group in our acronym that started the revolution for us. And there are so many, not to call out gay men, but like there are so many gay men who take advantage of that and never once give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, like, you guys have the biggest voice out of everybody in the community, at least in my opinion. And there's so many that are, which you are obviously the exception to this, but like so many that won't speak up on anything.
Yeah.
And like you guys are going to be the ones that are going to be listened to, and in this climate. And unfortunately, it's voices are getting softer and softer
Mm-hmm.
as more and more stuff comes out. But yeah, I don't think we'll be able to rest for a long time, unfortunately.
And I think this is important to talk about. You're talking about how like gay men have.
Mm-hmm.
It's the LGBTQIA plus community,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have this huge umbrella, but there's also discourse within the
Yes,
communities.
yes.
Like, I feel like when people hear it, some can think, oh yeah, they're this big group, whatever. But the subcultures, or like even each letter,
Mm-hmm.
there's different subcultures within the letters,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's discourse. Like, there are some queer people that don't like trans people.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, they're not,
Yes.
no, the T's are not a part of my community,
Mm-hmm.
which is insane.
Absolutely.
Like, it is so crazy. I feel there's this sense of superiority that
Mm-hmm.
queer people don't get. So when they see an opportunity to be above someone, because I think I was talking about this with Kate earlier, but there's just like being gay is bad. Or was I talking about it?
No,
Yeah.
I said, yeah, it was like whenever I was growing up, like, and then, you know, coming out and everything, like, whenever I would get feedback from people, like, essentially, like, well, at least you're not trans.
Yes.
Like, God, like, what a horrible thing to say to somebody that you don't know like that. Like, you know, it could be worse. At least you're not one of those.
Right.
Like, I mean, even within the community, it's crazy. And now, like, we're seeing a lot of, which I think is incredible, that people are finding, like, more safe spaces to be able to explore this. But I don't know how I landed on this side of social media, but there's a lot of hate from lesbians towards trans men because they're like, why aren't you just good enough to, like, why wasn't just being a lesbian good enough for you? Like, I don't know if it's strictly like the older generation of lesbians, but like a lot of them are kind of like turned off to the idea of lesbians, like masculine lesbians, ending up being actually trans men who hadn't figured themselves out yet.
Mm-hmm.
But it really just, honestly, it just goes to show that, yes, you're right, there's absolutely dissonance within the community, and you would think there would be some understanding because we have this shared experience of being marginalized in some way, but it's honestly not the case because everybody has a different story, a different upbringing, different experiences. Like, some people have really great coming out stories. Some, like myself, had a very rocky time coming out, and it necessarily wasn't on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, but people who have had a really positive experience, like, I think they tend to forget about the ones who have had to fight for it. And so, everybody makes the joke that I'm like a walking pride flag. Like, it's really kind of unfortunate that, like, I have to think about my safety every time I go into a place because I'm very obviously not a straight person. Like,
Queer presenting.
Yeah, exactly. So I try not to let it bother me, but I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that, I mean, I did go from being like straight passing and being more feminine, but I took advantage of that, I think. And I think back then, if I would have known what I know now, I would have tried to speak up a little bit more for people who do fall under the trans umbrella because they needed my privileged voice to be able. Let me just clear this up. They did not need my privileged voice.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
I should have taken an opportunity to speak up more, I think, whenever I did hear things that were transphobic, for sure. So, yeah, I think that can kind of go for each category, as you know, of the community is we have to be able to look out for one another because they're not discriminating. I mean, they are technically singling out trans people more so than the rest of the community, but nobody's safe. Nobody's safe in the community. Anybody that is different than their ideal traditional American, you're not safe.
Mm-hmm.
If you're poor, you're not safe. if you're not white, you're not safe. Like, it is an attack on everybody, but they're going to attack the most vulnerable first, and that's exactly what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's where the kind of superiority that some people in the community feel, it's like, I'm a gay white man, cisgender, I don't feel like this, but I feel like some people see like they do have a bigger voice or like a higher power than, let's say, trans people of color. And I think it's just a way to differentiate and be like, yeah, I'm gay, but I'm not like those people, you know? So I think there's just, and I don't know if that comes from a place of fear and they kind of want to distance, because people of multiple marginalized identities are the ones that get the most hate.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe there's like a want or like a desire to separate, so they don't, I don't know.
I think they're just not wanting to get caught in the crossfire, if I'm being honest.
It's insane.
Yeah. Self-preservation. I can't blame them for that, honestly, because at one point I was one of those people as well. I mean, do I think it's right? Absolutely not. But I can understand where they're at. But I also think a lot of it comes from, if it doesn't affect them directly, it does not matter to them. And it is that way for a lot of people. If it doesn't effectively address you as a person, as an individual, why care about it? And I think that's kind of where a lot of it comes from, is like, it hasn't directly affected these people just yet, but when it does, they're going to be like, well, you know, why didn't we know? Well, we've been screaming at you this entire time to say something, to do something before it was too late. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I've seen, hopefully it's shifting more and more. Maybe it's just my algorithm trying to make me feel better about about the political state of the world, but I am hoping that people do realize that their voices are not unheard. So yeah, I don't know. It's a cat and mouse game, honestly.
It really is. Okay, this has been dark. This has been depressing.
It has been.
I'm going to need a nap after this.
Same.
But I think we can turn it. There is a lot of shitty stuff going on right now, obviously. I think, what can occupational therapy practitioners do, like, in terms of, like, we're obviously not able to change the laws or change the anti-discriminatory policies or views of people. So what can occupational therapy practitioners do in order to advocate for the queer community?
I think there's a lot. I think it can be as big or as small as you want it to be. I was actually on a webinar situation where this exact question was asked, and I loved it. And honestly, kind of what I gathered from it, and I agree with this, is like, it can be something as small as wearing a pronoun pin on your badge, or wearing like a badge reel that has a pride flag on it, or it could be something as loud as like you correcting somebody's pronouns whenever they're misgendered. It could be, you know, you could literally be going to where they are, I forget, I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, whenever they read out the bills and stuff, and you get to actually go in and testify against why you think that the bill is
like
not.
Proposal hearing.
Yeah, exactly. So you can obviously tell I spent a lot of time in government. So. But yeah, your impact. I mean, as long as you have good intentions behind it, I think that literally any small effort makes a difference. Specifically for advocating OTs, I mean, really just being a safe place, making sure that you know that your clients know that you are a safe place. You can introduce yourself by saying your name and your pronouns. If you're not comfortable with that, just asking if they have preferred pronouns, or not necessarily preferred, what their accurate pronouns are. I know we're trying to get away from the preferred language.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I actually just learned that. So it's honestly just continuing to educate themselves as well, because there's, like we just said, there's new things coming out, new vocabulary and proper things to be used all the time. And I think also just giving yourself some grace, because you're not going to know everything. It's impossible to know everything, every small detail about how to operate in terms of working with queer people. Humility is, yes, exactly. At least if you do misgender somebody and they correct you, just being like, oh, I'm so sorry, I will try to do better about that next time. Thank you for correcting me. And it's something as small as that. But honestly, like, when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it, people in the queer community, especially trans people, they just want to be treated like every other person. Like they don't want to be singled out. They don't want to be given preferential treatment. We're not asking for much. Just literally just treat us like you would any other patient. So yeah, I honestly, I think that OTs, in terms of advocacy, just leading by example, educating other healthcare providers, it literally, the list could go on, but I think that there's so much we can do just by starting with ourselves and leading by example.
I don't think we've talked about like the position you hold at school.
Oh,
can you tell us
yeah.
about that?
Very new. Just elected president of the LGBTQIA plus Healthcare Alliance, or Gay Club. Yes.
See, it's a
yes. Yeah. It's a mouthful. But yeah, no, I'm super excited about that. Also, VP of COTAD, which I'm super excited about as well.
What does COTAD stand for?
Coalition of Occupational Therapy Advocates for Diversity, I think.
That sounds right.
I could be wrong.
Is Advocates for Diversity or and Diversity?
And something like that.
Okay.
COTAD. It's
COTAD, diversity, yes. OT diversity.
OT, cool people.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm really hoping that we can kind of collaborate over this next school year, combining the two, so we can educate our other classmates about the community and what they can do to better help going forward. So
that's amazing.
We'll see what's in the works. So
yeah, I'm excited to see what you do.
Yeah, me too.
Lots of big stuff coming, I'm sure.
I know. I'm a little nervous about it, but I think it'll be okay.
Oh, it'll be great. Okay, we talked about being affirming to clients we have that come in. Bigger. What if we're wanting to do like a little bigger picture?
Sure. So, I mean, it really I think it depends on your context for sure. I mean, we can start as small as doing like local governmental situations where if they're, you're hearing of some discrimination or injustice that's going on in your local community, trying to be there and speak up for that. But also just in terms of big picture, it feels so pointless right now. With, I'm being completely honest with you. Like, you can call your senators all day long, but will they do actually what you're asking them to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's just me being frank. I wish that there was more we could do on a super larger scale that actually felt like you were making an immediate impact. But I think it's just, it's connecting with people who are not just in your local community, but others. Maybe there are areas that you work with OTs that you meet at a conference that maybe they do work with a lot more queer clients, and maybe learning from them about how to better address maybe things that are going on back home for you if you live in a red state like we do. It's not something that's always addressed or talked about, maybe just trying to figure out how to bring that up when you go back home as well. So I think community and connection is a huge thing as well. There's also several networks, the OT network, which is you can find them on Instagram. It's a group for OTP, or occupational therapy practitioners, to connect over queer issues. And they have tons of little meetings here and there that they would discuss like the state of the world currently, at least the United States world, and how we can play a bigger role there. And really it just kind of just boils down to, we all feel kind of helpless right now, but just doing what you can in your little corner of OT and healthcare is pretty much what people are saying, is just keep trucking on what you can. And if there's huge changes that comes in terms of laws, then we reconvene and try to go from there together as a community.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel sometimes people or OT practitioners may find it difficult, like, it's client-centered care. You hear someone's queer, that doesn't mean you're going to do, okay, you're gay, we're going to do gay ADLs. We're going to watch Drag Race, and we're going to wear fun wigs. That's me stereotyping, don't do that. But I think just little things, like, obviously it's one part of someone, but that can, just acknowledging their identity and being accepting of it is great. And then also just giving them, providing, if it's what it calls for, like client to client, obviously, but if it's what it's called for, just, you're in inpatient rehab, for example. Like, you're obviously not gonna change the world or like help them like come out to their parents or something. But I think providing clients with resources when applicable, like with queer resources, that can always help, because I feel like especially in like settings like that, like where it's kind of like very structured. It's like, okay, we're doing this. They're going to leave in 5 days.
Yeah.
But just being able to create the affirming environment while they're there.
Absolutely.
And then potentially provide resources for when they go that they can carry over, I think it's small, but I think it can be like impactful in the long run.
I mean, you might not change the world, but you might change their world.
Yeah.
I think that one practitioner can make a massive difference in someone's experience in healthcare, because healthcare, we already know, is a piece of shit in America. So, I mean, for me personally, my primary care physician has made all the difference in my trust in the healthcare community, because, I mean, she has been extremely affirming, extremely supportive. Like, if I have a concern, she listens to it, and if it is a little bit, out of the ordinary because it's related to being queer or gender diverse, like, she is like, okay, let's do it, let's tackle it. Like, she treats me, I mean, it would be no different than if I said, okay, I have XYZ conditions, like, how can we go about treating this? Like, she literally treats it as if it's just a normal day. Like, never once have felt different. An OT can do that as well, making someone feel like if they maybe they are working on ADLs, maybe they are gay ADLs, like putting a binder on, learning how to redo that if they've had some type of injury, like being able to be inclusive and not be immediately like freaked out because, oh my God, it's a binder, I've never put a binder on, like, but like maybe educating yourself with like, okay, what other, like, how is a binder different than a sports bra?
Yeah.
It's extremely restrictive.
What is a binder?
So a binder is like a chest compression device. So it can be, binding in general is whenever you are compressing the chest tissue or breast, however you want to call it, to give more of like a flatter appearance. So I personally use a binder. You can also tape. You can also use like kind of like an ace bandage type situation. I know that was like way back in the day, like that's kind of more what people were using. But I mean, they are not super comfortable. They're really hard to get in and out of. They're not typically something you want to spend a lot of time in because they actually can be dangerous. Mm-hmm. So at least like educating yourselves on that alone, like you might have one trans mask client ever, but the fact that you knew that and made a difference in their experience while they were there with you, like that could mean a world of difference for them, especially with a community that has so much mistrust in the healthcare community as well. So I mean, I think just little things like that, like you said, just making a super safe environment for them. I mean, who knows? They could come back to you one day and remember exactly who you are, or they might remember OT because of who you were. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a ripple effect for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gosh. This is good.
I think a lot about this stuff, so.
At the end of the day, it's the queer community, yes. We're like this big group community. But like we discussed, there's discourse. Like people believe different things. People have different values in the community. So at the end of the day, we're OTs, client-centered care. Like me and you, we're both in the community. We're going to have two totally different like ways of being like cared for if we sought OT treatment. So I think taking all this information we've discussed, but then like balling it up and throwing it out. Like you got it, but now you're meeting this client, this unique little snowflake.
Absolutely.
And like, yeah, you have that knowledge, but this is a brand new person. Absolutely. You do not know them. Kate said something really cool. She said, don't fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Let them. Don't assume anything and just take it. Like you've met a non-binary person, straight people or people listening on the podcast. You know a non-binary person now? They are not the entire non-binary. They are not the voice. I'm not the voice for gay men. Yeah. So I think hearing these stories, taking them, throwing them out, okay, what does the client in front of me need?
I think we do that with every client, or we should be.
Yeah, should be.
We should be.
Absolutely.
If you're not, then no offense, like.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I feel like it's so easy to fall into that routine. It's like, okay, we're doing this. Now we're doing this. We're doing this. But, and that works, I'm sure. Sure. But if we want to get the best outcomes, if we want our clients to get the best care, like we need to know about them. We need to know what they enjoy, how they enjoy doing it, you know? Like, sure, everyone needs to toilet, but like, are we toileting how they need to toilet or like what's preferred for them?
Yeah. So. And if you don't know something, it is okay to admit that and okay to ask. Like, it is not going to be the end of the world. Yeah. Like, just the fact of being able to admit that you don't know something as a practitioner, whether it's to someone who is in the community or just someone who's not, like, I found that, like, being like, I really don't know a lot about that, but I'm going to go educate myself, and I'll get back to you on that. Like, that, to me, I would put so much more trust in that person, the fact that they're willing to admit that, instead of just, like, assuming that they know, like you said, filling in the blanks. That's not fair to anybody, no matter how they identify.
Can be dangerous.
Absolutely. Very dangerous. I mean, you don't do that with clients when you're treating them with medicine. I mean, I hope you don't. So, like, why would OT be different?
I personally don't.
Why would OT be different?
That's true.
But I think that's kind of how we have a unique take on things, is that we do consider the holistic person. We do consider their narrative, their story, like how every aspect of their identity, how they all come together. I mean, like you said, just because you've met one non-binary person doesn't mean you've met them all. So I think that that's true in terms of every client that we could come across. It's just making sure that you're individualizing things and remembering that they are their own person.
Yeah, and straight people are different too, I think.
I don't know.
I've met a few, and they can also be different. So at the end of the day, client-centered care. Yeah. Gay people and straight people.
Absolutely. Everybody.
So, end of the day, podcast over. Like, that's all you need to know. Yes. Like, meet your client, don't assume. Don't fill in the blanks.
Absolutely.
Get to know the person. Gay or not.
Gay or not.
I try not to meet a lot of straight people.
Yeah, I don't know very many, actually.
Yeah, it's for the best.
I know a couple of them. As long as they don't shove it down my throat, I'm really okay with it.
I support them. I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
But what can we do? Okay, so I think we're wrapping things up around here. Had a lot of good talk.
Yes.
Sad talk. Absolutely. We turned it around.
Absolutely.
I think it ended up being good. We got good tips.
I'm always down for happy talks.
Yes.
And I think serious talks are much needed as well.
Yeah. So, first off, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Second off, do you want to leave, if you can leave the audience with one thing, if they could take away like one little nugget of information from what we talked about today, or even if we didn't talk about it, like leave the people with something.
Ooh, okay. There's so much I could say. I could talk all day long.
Let's just start over. Let's just we just do the whole discussion again.
Another
It was
episode.
All important nuggets, and you need to remember all of this.
Absolutely. No, really, I just think that what it boils down to is I think that even if you have like differences with people and you think that you're so vastly different that you can never relate to them, get to know them, because I think you will find you have more in common than you actually think you do. And I think that's where a lot of our dissonance comes as a society, is that we think that we're all so vastly different. But really, when it boils down to it, we were all pretty boring people who have a lot in common, and it just takes some effort to get to know one another. And I really think that if we tried to make more of an effort of that, the world would be a lot different of a place.
Yeah.
So
beautiful. I love that. Okay.
Cool.
Shall we end in a song?
What song?
No, you pick. It's guest choice.
I would say Hot to Go, but that sounds like such a...
Kate said Chapel Roan, too.
Of course she said Chapel Roan. Ooh, if you don't know who E.R. Fightmaster is... Very beautiful non-binary person. Was the first non-binary person on TV, maybe in a medical drama. They were the non-binary doctor in Grey's Anatomy.
I never watched Grey's.
What? Okay.
I know McSteamy and McDreamy.
Very beautiful person.
Yeah.
Also, is a musician as well.
Okay.
Also a scholar. Also a very good podcaster. So, definitely should look up some of their music too.
Okay. Hum a few bars. Let's hear it.
No.
Okay, we'll just play some of their music, like, in the background as we, like, fade out.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Ren, thank you for coming on. Good talk.
Good talk.
Thank you all for listening, and tune in next time. That was so good.